Welcome to the PlanetRoq Podcast, the hottest show in the cosmos. Get ready for insight and inspiration right here on PlanetRoq with our special guest, Matthew Jean, and your cosmic guide through our ever-changing space and time, your host, Raquel Herring. Hello, and welcome to the PlanetRoq Podcast, your go-to spot for all things relationships, personal growth, and navigating life's twists and turns, from the depths of dating, marital dynamics, to the heights of spiritual journeys, entrepreneurship, money, pets, and plants. We explore every facet of human connection. I'm Raquel Herring, your cosmic companion on this wild ride called life, because life be lifing. Each episode on PlanetRoq is packed with insights and inspiration to help you thrive in this ever-changing world. From heartwarming stories to candid conversations, we're here to empower you and uplift your spirits. Tune in every Thursday at noon on Envision-Radio.com for some real talk, real people goodness. Follow me on social media for updates and swing by my website at raquelherring.com to stay connected. We have a wonderful show today, so grab your headphones, settle in, and let's rock your world one relationship at a time right here on PlanetRoq. So thank you for joining us. Joining us today is our very special guest, Matthew Jean. Matthew wears many hats. He's a therapist, author, and public speaker, but most importantly, he's a guiding light in the realm of mental health advocacy. As a lead trainer at Genius Consulting, Matthew dedicates his time to educating communities on crucial mental health topics, bringing awareness to issues that affect us all. With over 5 years of experience in substance abuse field, Matthew's expertise shines through in his work. He's not just a therapist. He's a visionary on a mission to tackle mental health challenges head on. Through his private practice, Beachstone Counseling, Matthew provides support and guidance to individuals, couples, and families, helping them navigate life's ups and downs with resilience and grace. What sets Matthew apart is his dedication to Black male wellness. He's a firm believer in being the therapist he needed 20 years ago, and his passion for helping others thrive is palpable. From his Fatherhood Speaker series to his advocacy initiatives, Matthew is making a real difference in the lives of Black men and beyond. So let's dive deep into the world of mental health, wellness, and empowerment with the one and only Matthew Jean. Welcome, Matt.
Hey.
Thank you for coming.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. It feels great to be a part of this first show. I know there will be many more to come. The success is on its way. So thank you for having me. I'm excited to be a part of this journey.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So we want to get into what you do. We hear a lot today about mental wellness, mental health, mental illness. Like, it's really being polarized right now because maybe it had been ignored or just cast to the side for so long. But thank God, like, now people are really embracing it. So I know we throw around like mental health, mental illness, mental wellness. Can you explain like the differences between those?
Of course. First of all, this is an important conversation. So if anyone's listening, make sure you pay attention, because you are going to be able to help yourself better and be a beacon for your friends and family around you as well. So when we think about mental health, right, I think we start off thinking about all the wrong there is when it comes to naming mental illnesses, right? We always go negative, but I think we need to start the conversation about our mental wellness, right? When we are well, What is the benefit of that? What are those benefits of us being well mentally?
Yeah.
Well, to break it down, when you think about mental health, you're thinking about the thoughts that are circulating through our minds, the emotions that we carry in our hearts, and then our physical manifestation of how we engage in all of our relationships. And so when we are well, when I'm doing great, I am a joy to be around. I can love easier. I can accept love. I can resolve conflict when my mind is healthy, when my heart is healthy, when all of those things are aligned. I'm the best representation of myself. And everyone else around me is the beneficiary of my wellness. So when we think about mental wellness, think about mental health in general, think about yourself well. Every relationship benefit from our wellness. So start there. You know, when you can see that value, then it's easy for you to then think about mental health as something that we need to prioritize.
Nice. That's a good explanation. I think we need that because we kind of like throw it all around and we're not really sure like what terms we should be using.
Right. Mental illness. I'm sorry to disturb you.
No, go ahead.
Mental illness, when you look at that, are the things that are named, just a category of named things that we experience when we're not aligned mentally, emotionally. Let's say, for example, people throw out the term depression or clinical depression, right?
Right.
Clinical depression, when you gather the symptoms of what's been happening with your thoughts, your emotions, and how you show up, then you can see the mental illness, right? It's when those things aren't well, when my thinking isn't where it needs to be, when my emotions are all over the place. And most of these are categorized for a series of time, 2 weeks or more is what they usually say. When these things aren't where they need to be, when my thinking is all over the place, when my emotions aren't where they need to be, meaning I'm experiencing high levels of sadness, high levels of low energy, of low interest, high levels of anxiety. When you think about those things lasting for more than 2 weeks, then you can start categorizing them as mental illness.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, it seems like it's kind of broadened up because, like you said, when you think mental illness, like first thing, like I think is like schizophrenia or something.
Yes.
But it's become accepted to be broader now. Like you say, the depression, more than 2 weeks, now it's become like an illness, right?
This is something that all of us probably deal with more so than not, right? Statistics would say that 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 4 individuals suffer from a mental illness or psychological issue any given year. That's what just the statistics say, but I would like for us to look closer, right? Because those statistics sometimes are so broad that we don't know where we fit in. We think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's it.
Right.
No, it may be all 5 of us in that same space, because when we are looking at our wellness, we feel when we're not well. We know when we're not well. But I think what you said earlier is that we've normalized a lot of these experiences of our emotions, of our thoughts, of our feelings, our sensational feelings in our bodies, how we show up. We've normalized them not being well. And so therefore, we don't even know when we're depressed. We don't even know when we're dealing with anxiety. We don't even know when we're dealing with postpartum depression. We can even go as far as that we don't even know when someone is dealing with schizophrenia, right? Because we've normalized a lot of these things to be, oh, that's just how that person is. Or we go to as far as saying that person is crazy, which is another label that creates stigma between us identifying what's going on and us being able to go get help. If you can't identify it, then you can't get the help that you need to get you back in the right mental, emotional state.
Right. That's interesting, because it's just like I said, like it's being more polarized now. How did you get started? Like you said that you're the mental health wellness expert, but that's what I'm saying, that you needed 20 years ago. Right. Explain that.
Great question. Great question. So, I grew up in the city of Miami, and of course there are smaller cities down there.
Me too.
All right. So you might know this city. The city is called Opelika, right? Opelika is next to Hialeah, right? And
yes.
Miami, Hialeah. I grew up in Opelika in the mid 80s and 90s, right? And Opelika was not a healthy city, is what I would say. There was a lot of violence, a lot of drugs, a lot of crime, a lot of polarized environments that a child now has to grow up in. When you think about that environment, the environment and the relationships, what this is about, that a child has with that traumatic environment, what it's doing to the child is creating a cycle of high levels of adrenaline and cortisol in that child's system because of stress. Wow. And so when I'm stressed out as a child, let's say, for example, I witness, several people get shot in my community, and then I had to go to school the next day to take an exam. In that process of me witnessing something so violent and then having to show up in a state where I have to now focus, that's not going to add up, right? So when you think about traumatic experiences, those are the things that hold us back from being our best selves. And so when you add up the traumatic experiences, I needed help back then. When I was 11 to 15, I was dealing with severe trauma in my household, in my community, at my school. All these things are happening. And so what I vow to be now is the therapist I needed, because I understand that there's nothing wrong with me per se. When you look at the environment and how the environment impacts the individual, then you can start looking and start helping from a different lens. You don't look and you judge. You don't look and you minimize. You don't look and you stigmatize. You come in accepting people where they are instead of creating a label that makes that person feel less than. So I needed that intervention. When I was an adolescent, I got robbed, I got jumped. All these traumatic experiences that are happening in my mind growing up in Miami allowed me to then show up in college. I had a scholarship at Florida A&M University.
Nice.
A music scholarship. Thank you. Right. I was doing great.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you. But in the background, I'm dealing with a lot of post-traumatic stress. And so what's showing up when I'm present is a lot of anger, but I'm not necessarily angry. I'm suppressing my sadness and my anxiety, so it manifests easily, as anger. And so I needed that intervention, somebody to tell me, Matt, there's nothing wrong with you. You've just been dealing with severe trauma. Those experiences that you haven't addressed are keeping you away from socializing effectively, of trusting effectively, of approaching relationships with the opportunities of growing in those relationships. Instead, I'm like, man, I don't want no parts of anything. And so I vow to be the therapist that a lot of young Black men need because of the experiences that I've had and the experiences that I know they're having. I want to be that go in between to help them understand the value in taking care of that mental state, that emotional state, to then show up as their best selves.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that people are embracing, especially Black males, are embracing getting help. Because like you said, you had to be told that it was traumatic experiences. There's nothing wrong with you, which a lot of men need to know. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just the fact that you've been traumatized. And who wouldn't be traumatized? I mean, going through those experiences in that area. And for so long, it's like even just the stigma of getting help was like a problem. But I'm so glad that you're saying that, that's one of your focuses, the Black male, and nothing's wrong with you.
Right.
You've just been traumatized.
Right. There's a book that was written by Oprah and a neuroscientist. This is a great book for anybody to go check out. Of course, Oprah has her book club, and I think she went through this book already, but it's called What's Wrong with You? Oh no, I'm sorry, it's called What Happened to You, right? And it's a book that was penned by Oprah, and the neuroscientist, his name is Dr. Bruce Perry. And Dr. Bruce Perry, I promise you, is a pioneer in this area of understanding the brain and how we show up in this world with our healthy brain or not, right? And so writing this book, just the title itself just allows you to just take a snapshot of understanding what happened to a person rather than what's wrong with you, right? We would look at what's wrong with the person rather than what happened to that person. A lot of us have our untold stories that we suppress on the inside, and they manifest. They allow us to show up with lack of trust, with lack of desire, lack of motivation, lack of compassion, because we're thinking of our own value associated with what happened to us in the past that allows us to show up with less value in the present. And then sometimes we sabotage opportunities because we don't feel we have that value. This is not just Black men. This is a lot of individuals who have not dealt with the question, what happened to you? And they show up in the present, not representing themselves fully and I guess the best way.
Yeah. I can relate to that because I wrote in my book about the sabotage. Let me plug my book, Falling Up, The
Yeah.
Unstoppable Journey of a Tear. And we're going to plug your book too, because you have a book.
Yeah, I have
We need to
several
talk
books.
about
We
that.
can talk about those in a minute. Go ahead, though,
Yeah.
please.
But yeah, I was talking about that in my book because I think, from different things I have experienced. I mean, to some people, it probably not traumatic, but a lot of it, I think, dealt with my self-confidence, and when you have like your biggest supporter who now says something contrary to what they have told you before, now it kind of like, it's kind of eating at you some. And then I think, like you said, as it festers, it grows, the different things that now start to play in that. And then like, what's wrong with me?
Right.
Instead of like what happened, it also starts to eat at your self-confidence, and you do become like a self-saboteur.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to do it, but like you said, those opportunities are coming, and now you don't really have the confidence or that esteem to really grab it and make it happen. And then with each like cut, it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. So yeah, I'm glad you talked about that, because it's necessary for people to hear what happened to you. I like that.
Right. Yeah. That's a book that I definitely recommend for a lot of people. And a part of his research is what I use to help people see clearly the difference between when you show up with a healthy mind versus when you show up with a mind that's dealing with trauma, anxiety, depression. There's a clear difference. And so it shows up, right? I can give you an easy example of how these things are happening. Let's say, for example, a person who is in school, studies for their exam weeks, months ahead, and they feel prepared, but they've been dealing with anxiety. And so they show up to that test room with anxiety. All that information they studied won't be available to them.
Right.
You're going to show up and you can't remember, because when we're stressed, when we're anxious, you lose mental capacity. That's something that Dr. Bruce Perry outlined. He says that when you're in a dysregulated state, is what he calls it, your mental capacity, your functional IQ goes down significantly. So you're not going to be yourself. You're going to show up not being as confident. You're going to show up not being able to make decisions that are beneficial for you in the present and in the future state. So it's healthy for us to examine where we are, to know where we are, ask that question. What thoughts have I been thinking? What emotions have I been experiencing? And then if you're satisfied with what the answer is, good for you. Please keep up that practice to make sure you can maintain it. But if you come back with the answer that's saying, you know what, these thoughts haven't been healthy for me. These emotions have not been productive for me. My body has been telling me that I need to do something different, but I haven't been listening. This is the time. This is the cue that you've been waiting for. Go get the help that you need. Go to your physical doc. Go to your family medical doctor first to get checked out physically. Make sure all those things are checked where they need to be. And then if you get the okay from your doctor, ask for recommendations, because it's not to come to us first. Sometimes it's a medical issue that can be, dealt with. But sometimes you may need to go the extra mile to find the psychological help that you need, to find the appropriate counselor that can help you maneuver through whatever's ailing you mentally and emotionally.
Yes, that's good. I have some more questions here. So, go see your medical doctor. That's good, because I would probably just I feel something's wrong mentally, I'm going to go right to, get some mental care.
True.
But going to the doctor, that makes sense, because it could be something maybe the balancing of our chemicals or something.
There you go. That's very true. And what helps us understand that is by understanding our bodies, right? All of it is connected. That's why mental health is so unique in that way, because mental health, sometimes people think, well, I can't see it. I can't see nothing wrong. But just because you can't see it doesn't mean that it's not acting. It's not happening in the background, right? And so what you have to think about is when you go to the doctor, they can create that physical balance for you, right? That may then create the emotional balance for you. You're not in any physical pain anymore.
Right.
emotionally you're going to come down, and mentally your thoughts will kind of balance out. But sometimes the physical body can still be where it needs to be. The
Yeah.
emotions can still be where it needs to be. But the mind is still racing. It's still dealing with a lot of the trauma, the grief, the
Yeah.
sadness, the anger. And so you still may need to go get help. That's what we recommend. If you come to the mental health professionals, we will always say, get checked by your doctor first. And then if
Okay.
all things are clear, they should be able to say, hey, go check out, somebody for your mental health services. Those are more people who are regularly going to the doctor. There are some cases where you may just have to go see the mental professional first. But for the most part, the routine should be, let me check with my family doctor, whoever my doctor is first, and then see if they can create the recommendation for what I should do next.
That's good. I think people really need to understand that. And that's very good information. I know for me, because like I said, I'd be going right to mental health first, and there may be something else there. Yeah. I believe in getting help. I believe in speaking with someone, because I think, sometimes you just need to talk with someone. You need
Yes.
someone who can get to have insight and be able to speak with them candidly, to, where you can say the things you need to say to get it out, and they're
Right.
willing to listen
Right.
without judgment, and really with the ability to help you. So
Here's the beauty of it. The beauty of it is that when you get trained, I got trained in family therapy, which is very unique compared to
nice.
some of the other professionals, right? Family therapy versus, let's say, mental health counseling. There's also clinical social work. There's also professional counseling. The family therapist, what makes us different from a lot of different mental health providers is that we're trained specifically to look at systems, meaning look at the things that are around the individual coming in for services, to see what is around you, the environment and the relationships you have with everything around you that is impacting you, right? And so
Yeah.
that is important, because when a person comes in, there are so many different things that is happening in the background that they can't see. When they bring it to us, it's our job to then open up to see a wider perspective, to allow them to then be engaged with what they see as well. Do you see the relationship between these two? Can you tell me more about how you believe these two have been impacting you in a positive way, right? We ask these questions so you can have evidence on what is ailing you, so then you can be the author of what's necessary to create that change as well, right? So that's kind of the unique standpoint of a family therapist, marriage and family therapist, versus a lot of those other mental health professionals. Not that they can't be trained in systems theory, but that's the bulk of how a family therapist is trained versus a lot of other mental health professionals.
Thank you for explaining that, because I was going to ask, how does that work? How do you expect someone to show up when
Right.
they come, and what would be the beginning of the discussion? So thank
Yeah,
you.
that's
Thank you.
always fun. That's always fun too, starting off with a new person. So great
Yeah.
question. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, how did you, I think we talked about this a little bit, determined that you would specialize in Black male wellness?
Great question. Great question. So, of course, I'm a Black male in the field. There isn't a lot of Black males in mental health therapy at all.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, no, there's not a lot of us, not even when I was in classes, there were very limited amount of Black men represented in the field. And so, I completed my master's program, and I was on the way to finish my PhD program. I was at the end of my first semester in my PhD program, doing great. And then I received a phone call when I was on my way to the library to complete an exam for my final, one of my final exams for my first semester of my PhD program. And on that phone call was my brother that informed me that we had a close friend that ended his life by suicide.
Wow.
And this is a friend that we knew from high school. We went to FAMU together. We had now both moved back to South Florida, living on the same street in Oakland Park in South Florida. And so we were very close. And that impacted me so severely as a Black man mental health provider, because we were close, living close. I even felt responsible for quite some time because I wasn't able to intervene in the way I wanted to, or in the way I could, because of some of the ethics that are set up, informing us that we can't see relatives and close friends and so forth as our clients. And so I wasn't able to intervene in that way. And we lost him. And so with that loss, it really took a toll on me as a provider. I
Yeah.
even left the field for maybe 2 years to work
Wow.
outside while I took care of my own mental health to get myself ready to be back in the field. Once I got back into the field, though, I made it, an obligation, for me to make sure that a couple of things happen. One, that I would be a safe space for Black men
Yeah.
when it comes to working with them, so that they can have spaces where they can talk about their mental state, their emotional state, their spiritual state, whatever they have to talk about. I
Yeah.
would be that state. And so I became a beacon in that way. The second thing that I did was to make sure that we had more opportunities to have conversations about mental health outside of a crisis. We
Yeah.
can't wait till crisis occurs to then have these conversations about the value of taking care of your mental wellness. And so I started to go out into the communities under a nonprofit that I organized called the Go To Therapist, where we'd go to churches, schools, community centers. I believe that's how I met Ty, because I was working so much in the field down in South Florida. And so it was an opportunity for me to make sure that our community was being educated on what
Yes.
mental health was, what mental wealth was, what mental illnesses were, and so that they can have access to services by contacting us and us putting them in the right connections with people who would get them the right services. And so once I lost my friend, I made it a goal of mine to make sure that Black men knew that I was there, and that the community will always have an advocate when it comes to mental health education.
Yeah.
Right.
Now you said that we want to, like, I guess, kind of like have tools to be prepared before there is a situation.
Right.
So now, how would you go about doing that? How would you tell me, like, how to be prepared that before a situation explodes, that I don't have to explode with that situation,
Right. First thing we're going to do is remove the stigma, right?
Okay.
I tell people that the stigma is such a pervasive thing, because it is the one thing that keeps a lot of us from getting help, right? So once we feel shame, once we feel minimization, judgment associated with saying that you may have a mental health issue, then that's going to stop us. So our job is to make sure we educate people on the value. That's why when I started the conversation, I started talking about what wellness brings, when you are in that great state. And so that is a great space to then mark, because if you know where you should be or where you would like to be when it comes to your wellness, if you've measured that and understand where my mind is at its best, where my heart is more aligned and feel light, where my body feels, in sync with all of those things, then that's your marker. Now, if you check in with yourself on a daily basis, you can see the fluctuation from in your mental wellness. And so once you start to see that you fluctuate, make sure that you have the appropriate tools to get back there. Those who can't get back there are the ones that may need to seek out mental health services. If I can't get back to my regular normal self, and by the way, this is outside of what we've normalized. I'm not saying that person that's normal, but normal in the sense of accepting traumatic experiences, accepting unhealthy environments. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the best version of you that you have access to mentally, emotionally. When that person isn't able to show up, then we need to start thinking about, what do I need to get back to my, healthy self? And of course, there are low-hanging fruits that we can do by ourselves. There's, of course, breathing exercises, there's dancing, there's yoga, there's, going for a hike, getting a drink. All these things are able to get us back to our higher self. But when we've exhausted our own tool bags of coping mechanisms and we don't have the answer, that's when you should start saying, you know what, I need to give Matt a phone call to see how I can get plugged in with the right professional help and to start bettering, myself. But the preventative is to be aware. If you're aware, then you have a better handle on maneuvering it back into the alignment that represents you the most.
Yes. Well, I know when we got ready to start the show, I was like, wow, because like I want everything to be perfect. I want everything to go right.
Yes.
And you were just like, okay, let's just do an exercise. Think about who you're gonna call after we film this. Like, who are you gonna like? Tell us about that, because I was like, oh, tell us about that.
Our minds are powerful. Our minds are powerful, and we have to recognize that. I was told very young, and it's biblical as well, that our words have power. There's a verse that says life and death and the power of the tongue. We know this to be true, but our words formulate in the brain, right? And so if the words that are formulating in your brain is for your disaster in your near future, then what's happening in your brain is going to show up in your emotions, meaning the thoughts, the words that you're thinking are going to manifest in the hormones that are being released or suppressed in your body to allow you to show up with anxiety. Right, to allow you to show up with less focus, with less clarity. And so if my mind now is thinking, going, celebrating, right? Good times, right? Yeah. Now my mind is like, okay, dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, all these things that's going to allow me to show up and be my best are now at my disposal. So I'm feeling good, thinking about who I'm going to call, what restaurant I'm going to go to. Now my mind is now prepared to deal with whatever it takes to get to that result, because I'm more inclined to focus on the good feeling, because I gave my mind a different pathway to think about. Instead of thinking about what's going to fail, I'm thinking about the success, the closure of it. So it's a trick that we can kind of help our minds get aligned with getting to that best state. So once you start thinking about celebrating, your whole mood shifts, you're more clear, you're more poised. And now, you can deliver to your fans the best version of you.
Facts. That is true. It did. It calmed me down to like now, because it's like I shifted off. I wanted to be perfect. I want to be this. I want to be that. To, when this is done, I'm going to make this call. I'll be like, oh my gosh, I had so much fun. Yeah. It shifted my mind to that positive aspect of once it's completed, how I'm going to feel. So yes, thank you for that.
You're welcome. Your words have power. So why not use the advantage of the brain that you have, the imagination that you have, to think about the success in the present? It gives you the gift of being able to feel something different that will allow you to then take those steps towards that victory.
Yeah. What can we do? Like, because you say our words have power, and
they
do. Like, I listen to this about every morning. And trying to train the brain, train the mind to think differently than it has been accustomed to. Sometimes I'm like, my goodness, why can't I just do this right? Because, again, I think I had that perfection syndrome. Like, but why can't I get this right? To not think those sabotaging patterns to thinking better. One, thinking about myself better, thinking about what I do better, thinking about what I say to myself better. What can we do to like really get in there to rewire that thinking?
Great question. I would say start with the end in mind always, right? Remember, in those moments when you're thinking about all those things that could happen and has happened, because we have evidence of things not going our way, and that kind of becomes the pattern on which our brains choose to take. Our brains are so used to us firing in that direction. What I mean by that, synapses, meaning the thought goes from one state and is rapidly be able to come to the conclusion based on knowledge that's already there. So if you're thinking about a different conclusion, what it does is it sets you up differently, right? And so how do you start that process? You start that process by, I think, making sure you can get into the best mental state possible, right? Home court advantage. Home court advantage is one of those things that athletes know. Anyone that is familiar with being in one place over and over. If you work for a company long enough, you have home court advantage because you understand the environment. Home court advantage is internal and external. What's going to give me the best opportunity for me to feel the advantage of a clear homeostasis mind, meaning my mind is clear, my heart, then you have to do those things. So before I can even start putting ideas into the future, I have to make sure the mind that I have is calm and clear. So how do I detox? I detox by maybe doing a light meditation. I detox by doing some reading, by listening to some music, by making sure I have my coffee. If for those who drink coffee, I drink tea mainly, drink your tea, putting on some nice clothes, making sure the environment is clean, making sure you have aroma, making sure all those things that's going to allow you to set yourself up for success is there. Then in that environment is when we can start reprogramming the brain. The brain won't get programmed when it's angry, when it's disturbed, when it's anxious. You won't program anything. In fact, that's default setting now. That's the default survival mode that you kick in. Once you get into that regulated mind, that's when you can start reprogramming. Once you are in a restful state, you're reprogramming not just your brain, by the way. This is an amazing fact. You're reprogramming your entire body. Imagine once you get anxious, your heart knows what to do. It starts to beat faster.
That's true.
Your lungs starts to work. Your muscle starts to clench. You sweat more because your body is trained to react that way. In the calm state, what you're doing is that in the calm state, you're feeding your brain another set of information that will allow you to then show up. Your heart is like, thank you. I'm not beating as fast. I'm not working as hard. Your lungs are getting the right amount of air. Now your muscle is less tense. You're more, in that ease and flow. And before you know it, because you are succinctly aligned, it's easier for you to then forecast the best outcome, which then rewards you in the present. It rewards you in the present. It's not here yet, but when I start to think of all of the good things that are coming for me, I can't help but to start getting excited. And then in that excitement, my brain rewards me for something that's not even real yet. It's the same thing is true on the opposite end. When we're anxious in the present, your brain will consequence you, right? It will give you the things to then welcome in more anxiety, more doubt, more fear. And so if we want to then change that, we have to make sure we create advantage internally, right? Messaging that we put in our brain from the start of the day. What is something that you want to infuse in your brain to the midday? What is something that's going to help you get back to that center? And at the end of the day, what mantra, what prayers, what scripture you're going to add into your routine to help you get back to that healthy mind?
I'm going to listen to this again.
Please.
I need that. Yes. To stay on track, elaborate on the Fatherhood Speaker series.
Yes. I am a father. And I think that's one of the best things that happened for me, becoming a father, because it shaped me in a way that I didn't think was possible. The fathers that I saw that were in front of me weren't necessarily the best example of what a father was. And so for a long time, that was something that I was very terrified of, becoming a father, because I didn't want to be that father that I saw ahead of me. So by the time I became a father, I was able to debunk a lot of those things that I thought were true. For example, that it's hard work. Yes, it's hard work, but it's one of the most rewarding things that you can be a part of, becoming a father. And so when I created the Fatherhood Speaker series, I recruited several fathers that were in the mental health field to speak about their experiences from not having a child to becoming a father. I had one that was a millennial dad who spoke about his experience. I had another one who was a father to a blended family, meaning he had some kids from a previous marriage. And so all of these experiences were shared from a mental health perspective on how we can get the best out of us as fathers. I'm also a trainer in a program called Connecting with Fathers for the Children's Services Council of Palm Beach, where I help educate providers on how to best engage fathers. And so the Speakerhood series was a gift that I wanted to give back to the community, to say that we're here and fatherhood isn't something that we should be ashamed of or afraid of. This is something that we should walk towards, to bring back the legacy of the value that came with that title, fatherhood.
I love that. The value. It's a big difference for men to feel value, to know their value.
Yes.
That's a big thing, knowing your value. And I think that, a lot of men just over this period of time, specifically Black men, just have not even had the opportunity to maybe even think about their value.
Right.
And I'm so glad that, it seems like now, once again, with the acceptance of mental health and the wellness and getting help if you need it, they're starting to find their value again.
Right. Yes.
They are valuable. Black men are
Yes.
valuable. And I
Yes.
think they need to be told this more often, that they are valuable.
Exactly where they are. I think sometimes what we've been told by society is that we have this list of things that we have to check in order to then increase our value. Which, of course, all those things are subjective. What I would say is that find your value exactly where you are in your mental state, in your emotional state. It doesn't matter where you are. You're still valuable. If you have breath in your lungs, you have a functioning brain, you're valuable. You can still contribute to this world in a positive way. You can still get yourself to a better version. We don't change or pour into things we don't value.
Right.
And so if you start to see your value, then hopefully the goal is you start to treat yourself with that value. Because I understand my value, I don't give of myself to anything. I don't allow myself to be associated with anything. I don't, frequent certain, conversations or certain places because I know my value. And if I understand my worth, then what I show up into this world is to mirror that worth in my kids, because I know my value. My kids know my value. I'm a father of 6, by the way. I didn't share that.
Whoa, 6!
Yeah. So my wife and I had our first child. We had our first daughter, and then we had triplets shortly after. So we skipped the line. Yes. And so we had triplets, and the first set of 4, we had our daughter, and the triplets were all girls, and so
wow.
Yeah. And so 10 years later, which was 2 years ago, we had our first boy. Thank you. I know. I'm so grateful. I have my boy now. And then we had a girl to keep him company because he was so much younger than the first set of kids. And so we have 6 kids. And so that's why parenting and me advocating for fathers is so important, because I am a father and I know what I needed, what I definitely deserved as a child. And getting men to see that value and naming themselves as father or a man or a husband, all those titles have value.
Yes, they do. And we need more. We need more of men feeling valuable about them, feeling that value. And we need more like marriages that staying together. My goodness. My marriage didn't make it, but I pray for marriages.
Yes.
Like, when I find someone's married, I'm like, oh my gosh, right away. I'm like, Lord, stay with them, help them, hold them up, because it's a lot,
It is. I definitely think that's going to be one of our best conversations when we get a chance to really open up the conversation about marriage. I can't wait. So for those who are tuning in, make sure you tune in again.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, because you're going to be coming back talking about these different aspects of the relationships.
Yes.
Yes, I'm excited about that. I want to make sure we get to talk about your book. And I want to ask, with all of your accomplishments, what are some of the goals that you have set moving forward?
Great question. So one of the things that I would love to see is a 24-hour mental health network. And I believe they're creating that right now, but specifically around the needs of the Black community. When these things happen, when we have 24-hour anything, it's usually for the, other, not necessarily geared towards speaking about some of the issues that are important to us. And so one of my goals is eventually have a network where we can have conversations like yours, 24 hours, 365, where people can tune in and learn and grow and get educated and have fun and understand the benefits of their wellness, and then create the general, but the generational legacy of mental wellness. What I want to leave behind is a generation that is healthier than me, that is healthier than their grandparents and so forth. And so each generation will have less trauma to deal with. They will show up with a healthier heart. They will show up with a healthier lung, because their lungs and their hearts wouldn't have to work as hard as mine did or my dad's did, because of all the traumatic experiences we've had.
Yeah. And to go back to what we were saying before about the value, what started popping into my head, because a lot of times you'd see post online, social media, like be kind to yourself, say nice things to yourself. And sometimes I have an issue with doing that, and I catch myself saying, why are you saying that? Like, how does that help you?
Right.
And I started going back to like, what does God say about me? Sometimes
Wow.
I feel like if we just go back to that, what does he say about me, since he like matters the most?
Yeah.
And really trying to make sure like I write that down, which
Right.
I write it down and then I can't find it, right?
Right. Right.
So like getting that word into you, like, what does God say about me? You know,
Yes.
I think that helps too with us getting that value into us, because he matters. Like, he created us
Right.
and he feels good about us. But there's so many things that come to us throughout the day that really doesn't make us feel like he cares sometimes. And when
Right.
we can think about how does he feel about me, it does help spark us up, and then we can talk better to ourselves.
Right. Words have power again, and
That's right.
we know the power of scripture, we know that power. So we have to use it with the intent of releasing power, right?
Right.
Meaning, if I read scripture and I don't believe what I'm reading, then there's no power in that.
Right.
But if I know that there's power in the words that I'm reading and I understand how that power will be then infused in my life, then I'm unstoppable.
Yeah.
For example, as a college student, of course, most of us go through what we went through, but there were some scary times and I had to quote scripture. I will keep thee in perfect peace. There is no fear in love. Perfect love casted out all fear, right?
Yes.
And so if I believe these things, then I have to show up with that level of confidence. Here's one of the scriptures that I believe is one of the most telling scriptures for a lot of us, right? It's the scripture that right before Christ was leaving his disciple, he said, I go to prepare a place, and if I go to prepare a place, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you may be also, right?
Yes.
Let not your hearts be troubled is how it starts.
Yes.
You believe in God, believe also in me. That is so important, because if God is telling you, let not your hearts be troubled, he's telling you that your heart should not be anxious, should not be angry, should not be sad, should not be grieving, because there is a promise there for you that if you attach to it, you don't have to worry about what you can see.
Yeah.
What you have to focus on are the things that are coming for you, the things that are in the future for you. So don't worry about what you can experience right now. Don't let your hearts be troubled. And that is very telling, because when trouble hits, we start to panic. We don't remember those claims. We don't remember that there is a God that can keep us in perfect peace. When you start to value those scriptures and see the power that's in them, then you will have that peace for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I know when I was going through my less bright times.
I like how you phrase that.
Yeah, like, how can I say this? Like, yeah, I could really, I had, attest to those scriptures. Like, I felt like I really saw them work in my life.
Right.
It's one thing when you're just saying them, when you're like, okay, yeah, I'm learning about God. That's great. That's great. But then when you have a situation that you can see, like that word,
right?
Like when God said Jesus is the word, right? And like
the word become flesh.
Yes. And his hand is reaching out to you. The word is reaching out to you saying, take my hand. Right. I am going to save you from this rubble. I'm going to save you from all these shambles, Right. Like I could say at that moment in my life, I really saw the word work.
Right.
And that just like really went into me being even more of a believer. Right. Because it calmed me. Even though the storm is circling, it calmed me. It gave me like that hope. It gave me some peace to be able to hold on to. It helped me to get some rest.
Right.
So I really experienced that.
We got to wrap up 2 minutes.
Okay, please tell us about your book.
Okay, so I am a 4-time published author.
Woo!
Yeah, so that's one of my books right there. And of course, because I have small children, they always encourage me to write stories. I used to share stories with them for bedtime. And so they would say, Dad, your stories are great. You should write a book. You should write a book. And so I took their inspiration and started writing children's books. That was the first book I wrote, called Go to School Every Day. I partnered with Broward Schools down in South Florida to create this book because they were dealing with attendance issues in their county. And so I wrote that book as a response to them dealing with attendance. And of course, it's available for anyone. It's not just down there in Broward. And then I continued writing. My second book dealt with our consumption of electronic devices. Kids are always on their tablets and stuff like that, their iPads. And so I wrote a book called When the Tablets Ran Away. And what the book really talks about is how to balance that screen time that kids have based on the parents understanding that they only are going to mirror us. If we're in front of this, a lot, then they're going to see what we do and they're going to do the same thing. The next book I wrote was specific for kids during the pandemic, and they were dealing with a lot. I saw my kids deal with grief, deal with stress, deal with anxiety, and they didn't have the means to really cope. And so I wrote a book called Have a Good Day. That book teaches kids how to balance their mental and emotional state by going through a routine, having their own routine where they can start the day, kind of create gratitude, then kind of same thing we went through, forecast what you desire, step into that reality with truth. And if you have a issue, you can reset, start over, and so forth. But the day outlines a kid that was having a really bad day and how his father kind of came in and helped him out. The last book I wrote is called The Dark Inside You. And that book is about creating a balance, again, always about balance, our fear of the darkness, our fear of the dark in kids. And what that means, the fear of the dark is basically our fear of the unknown. And so if we understand that our fear of the unknown sometimes keep us back, then we have to face it. We have to understand it and address it in a way. And in that book, the unique part about that book, The Dark Inside You, is that there are no pictures. There are no pictures in that book. You have to use your imagination, which is the dark, to then create the images from what you are reading off the page. And I also introduced in that book my own font, which is called Genius Font. And I know I had this a lot, right?
Nice.
And the benefit of having that font is that it helps your brain create brand new neural pathways. You haven't seen this font before. It's something like hieroglyphs that you have to now put pieces together to now figure out. And then figuring it out, it allows your brain to always, be solving and creating. And so it's a part of bringing, from the darkness into light, unknown to known. So these are the books that I've written. I have some more that are on the way. But thank you for allowing me to share the books with your audience.
Yes. And please share where people will be able to contact you.
Great. Right. All things Matt Genius. My business is called Genius Consulting with my wife, geniusconsultingllc.com. You can find us there. You can find me on any social media platform as Matt, M-A-T, Genius, Jeanius. You can find my books on Amazon under Matt Genius or Matthew Gene. Both are on my website or on my link tree and on Instagram as well. And so you can find my private practice, Beachstone Counseling, at beachstonecounseling.com or Beachstone Counseling on IG as well, or Facebook.
Matt, thank you so much. Like, you are so smart, right? I'm listening to you and I'm like, he's so smart. I like it.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and I love the information you have given us because, we need it. We need to hear it. Be more open to, really looking introspectively at ourselves to determine, we all need this mental health, mental wellness. We all need it. And I appreciate you so much for being so open, coming on to the show and telling us the benefits, getting really down into it. And I know we have so much more to talk about.
Yes.
So again, I'm so grateful for you being a part of, I like to call it the residency here at PlanetRoq.
Yes. Listen, you had me with that intro. You started playing that music. I'm like, let's go.
Yes.
Right? So I would love to come back. You tell me when and where, and I'd love to help, give out more information to you and your audience. Thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure.
Same here. Thank you so much. Until the next time, thank you all for watching PlanetRoq, and we'll be back next Thursday at noon on Envision-Radio.com. See you there.